Hello and welcome back to the Epic Investor Podcast. My name is James Morrell, and today we're going to be discussing the idea that investing is like running a marathon, which requires patience, a determined attitude, and the ability to harness negative emotions and channel them into a positive frame of mind. Let's get started. All right, so I'm here with Rich Jarvis and Jason Morris. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Great to be here. So I'm pretty excited about today's topic just because it relates to one of my personal hobbies in life. As you guys know, I, for years, have been really into endurance runs, marathons, ultra marathons, Ironmans. I love the sport. I love the challenge. I love the grind of it. But I wanted to talk about it today because I've learned a lot of valuable lessons in those events that I think are relatable to investing. And to kind of introduce the big picture, I think running a marathon or a big event it requires principles like patience and determined attitude. And as I mentioned in the intro, an ability to deal with negative emotions and accept the ups and downs and the market cycles, so to speak, of that run.
Some would say you'd actually need a touch of insanity too.
And a touch is crazy. Exactly. Yes, I have that too, I think. So I wanted to start off with this story about a race I did years ago. And the point of here is talking about patience, which is required both for marathon running and for investing. It's called the Monument Valley Marathon back in 2019. It's down in the Kayenta Valley region on the border of Utah and Arizona. And I got to the start line and there was this person there, this guy, and he's jumping up and down and he's pretty in shape and really pretty big ego back to our episode the other day. The starting gun went off and he took off sprinting. And I was thinking, at this point, I've ran quite a few big events. I thought, this guy, there's no way. At mile 16, 17, I still hadn't seen him. I thought maybe this guy is a super athlete and Olympian. Well, at mile 18, there is an aid station and I go up and this guy is dying completely. His ankles are shot. He's cramping and crying. And I thought, okay, maybe he'll come back. We keep going down to a turnaround at mile 20 and see him again coming back at mile 22 or 3. And he was being escorted off of the racetrack, essentially, by the course. So it reminded me just of the importance of patience that's required to finish an event like that, to kind of have the proper mindset. And as we all know, it's a very important thing in investing, right? When you're placing an investment, you have to have that long-term mindset, unless you are just going for a short-term, crazy, maybe ego type investment, which, as we've discussed before, is not the right way to go. It takes patience. It takes a certain attitude. If you don't have that patience, you might end up not finishing the race, right? Any thoughts on this that come to mind?
Really interesting. I was thinking of how many people attribute the success of a project by the shiny objects at the start, instead of the longevity, the teams that can get through, expecting challenges and problems to happen and knowing that you've got a team that can navigate through them, right?
Do you guys feel like maybe it's part of a culture that we have that we're not as patient? My first thought was, we live in a world, right, where you can go on your phone right now and you could buy thousands of dollars of things on Amazon and have it at your front door tomorrow. So does that create some impatience? Like, why are people so impatient these days?
So I have a little bit of a confession, maybe a what not to do example. My brother-in-law has brain cancer. He's been battling it for a long time. He's a true warrior. I mean, the definition warrior is TJ. And last year he calls up all the brothers-in-law, which, by the way, my wife's family, there are 8 girls in that family.
Yeah.
And so now I've got, 7 brothers-in-law on her side. He calls up all the brothers-in-law and says, "Hey, we're going to go to Branson, Missouri and do a triathlon. And,
Right.
We're going to do it with TJ, for, support TJ." So of course, I don't back down from a challenge. I'm in, let's go. James, you'd be disappointed that I didn't do a single minute of training. But
okay.
I was the guy at the start that had the coolest bike, the coolest helmet, the right sunglasses. I bought my, I don't know what they call it. I bought my wetsuit the night before, and it had enough thickness that it would keep me buoyant in the river that we were swimming in. I had the right shoes. I had the right everything, James. And Emily, actually, my wife, shamefully, she has a video of me actually training. I put the dry suit on the night before and laid on my bed and practiced what it would feel like to, swim in this suit that I bought. And I remember, man, I got out there and I think it was a 1 mile swim was all. I only did the sprint. And I turned my first buoy maybe 20 yards from the start and was already like, I'm going to die. I'm going to sink. I'm going to drown in this water. I rolled over and did the backstroke the whole way. I think I was the third to the last guy out of the water and took my time through the next biking. And, I was able to go buy all the right equipment, the right gear, and have it either delivered or I could go to the store and buy it. But I was not prepared, for that event. I was not prepared for that opportunity. But there's a lot of applications, to using these failures in life of how you can attack investing, how you can attack business, how you can attack raising kids, how you can attack, personal improvement and progress by, having the patience and the discipline to go at things the right way instead of just believing that you can read a book and then you're a pro at it.
Right. Exactly. I love that. That's actually my next point is having the discipline and the kinds of habits you need to have to be successful in the investment world. So if we're talking about marathon running, it's that initial preparation. It's the consistency. It's the training each day, even in times you don't want to. It's dealing with setbacks. It's dealing with maybe some insecurities. And I see the same thing on the investment side. It's doing the initial due diligence necessary, aligning yourself with the right people, the right teams, the right amount of knowledge to make a decision, consistently allocating capital to take advantage of that compound effect as we've discussed before. And I think just having that mindset of delayed gratification, nothing truly great comes right now. If it did, it was lucky. Greatness kind of happens over the course of 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, really 20, 30 years probably. An example we could talk about is the kinds of projects that we have. At minimum, at this moment, we have a project that you have to be in for at least 1 year. But a lot of them are 4 to 5 years, right? So this delayed gratification is super important. We want things now, right? And I think that's such an important thing to keep in mind. If you're running a marathon or you're investing, that longer term play and understanding it's going to take a lot of time and consistent effort to really reap the benefits that you want.
And at the end of the day, when the projects are built, people from the outside see this project going up and they say, oh, wow. And it went up like in 6 months, right? And they're like, they did that so fast. And they have no clue about the marathon that has already been running for years to get it to that point.
Right.
And I think a lot of investors mistake projects that they're seeing, and they'll see them go up pretty quick once it's at that stage of going vertical, and think, oh, this is easy. I can just get some land, go to the city, get it all done, and get the horizontal work finished, and then vertical, and I'll be out of this in no time. And it's a completely different experience when you look at the reality of how much time and effort it takes, and to make sure you have the right teams in order to make those decisions along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all good things take time, right? I mean, if you can think of stories in your life, has anything just happened immediately that was great?
Not anything good.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, it was fun or insignificant if it was just, quick, but anything that's truly brings joy and has a deep impact to life.
Yeah.
No, it was not the snap of a finger.
Right. Like, what are you guys most proud of in your lives? Because I guarantee whatever those things are, and you can share, they took time. Probably a lot of time. Maybe it's either time with your spouse and building that relationship.
Can I make a barbecue analogy? Is that
Absolutely.
For context, Jason is a professional barbecue
analogy.
Yeah.
Is there ever
I hear those every day, barbecue analogies. Yeah, come on.
Well, I had the thought, have you ever cooked a brisket?
I actually haven't. That's crazy to say.
No, I don't think that's crazy.
I've assisted brisket cooking with my mom, actually.
The brisket I'm thinking of when I say I cooked one is not the same thing when you say you've cooked one. So
well,
just make it clear.
I microwaved my brisket.
Okay. Perfect context for this. If you've ever cooked a brisket, and there are a lot of ways to cook it wrong, but if you don't know about the brisket, you will cook it the wrong way, and therefore you won't enjoy it. So if you want to have, let's say somebody said, hey, I'd like to have brisket tacos, right? and you go open up your brisket, which is typically a packer 18 pounds of beef, which is the front chest of the cow, and you trim off some of that and you dice it up and you throw it into the skillet and you brown it up to put it into your tacos, you are going to have a bad experience because you don't know what you don't know. A brisket requires, if you are to cook an 18-pound brisket, you need to budget 18 hours of a slow cook.
Mm-hmm.
You can't cook that in 4 hours. You can't say, oh, I forgot about the brisket and it's time for dinner in 2 hours. I'm going to put it in the crock pot. It will be tough. It will be chewy. It will be gross, and you'll have a bad experience. How do people like this? Brisket's disgusting. But if you will appreciate what the brisket is, because of all of the muscle and the fats that are in it, it takes time to break it down so that you can enjoy good, moist, savory brisket. And so
right.
I'm not answering your what are you most proud of? It's what came to my mind when I thought, what have I ever spent a lot of time on?
Right.
And I've seen people cook brisket fast, and I've seen people be very upset about brisket.
Wow. That's like saying, I don't have time to bake the cake, so I'm just going to put it on the stovetop and cook it faster.
Yeah. No, you can't do that. Well, you can, I guess.
So I had an opportunity to hire an Olympic swim coach just to come in and just give me some pointer why she was in town. And I was so excited. So I get there at the pool and we were talking about some things, and she's like, okay, I want to see where you're at so we know exactly what to work on. And if you remember in Kung Fu Panda, when Master Shifu says, okay, show me what you got so we know where to begin. This is my moment, right? She goes, yeah, just swim down there and back. And it was a 50-yard pool. So 50 yards there, 50 yards back. And I remember I got in there and I just gave it my all. I wanted to show her what I'm capable of, right? And I get to the end and I remember her looking at me going, she didn't even have a facial expression. She was just looking and she goes, And then it changed and she kind of cocked her head and she goes, well, I guess we'll just start from the beginning.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
There is now a level 0, right?
Yes.
That was my Master Shifu moment. And, but the things that she taught were amazing. And what happened is over time, and I remember going out and and it's hard. You swim that first 20 yards and there's just a lot going in and you're just exhausted, right? But I got to the point where we were doing pond swims. And so we just swim the circumference and we just train and just swam you go out and just swim for an hour, for how long as you can go. And I remember at one point I was swimming and I was so relaxed. I literally was taking a nap while I was swimming, right? It felt like I was enjoying it. I was in the flow. I was not spending any energy whatsoever. I just felt, is
that the equivalent of like a runner's high?
I haven't experienced it many times, but this time I remember experiencing it. I'm like, it just felt so natural. And it wasn't that it was easy, but it was easy. I felt like I was actually relaxed so much that I could take a nap while I was doing these. And I was like, I wonder what my splits were. I looked at my splits and they were faster than I was going before.
2-3 years ago, I'm gonna share a story. I was doing my first attempt at running a 100-mile run and had a serious back injury. And at mile 50, I was like, there's no way I'm going to make this. Had to kind of eat my own ego because I had never given up in a race in my life. And it was really hard to do this, but I decided to back off that and quit the race. Came back the next year, and long story short, I was able to complete the 100 miles. But there were so many walls that I hit throughout that event that could have been the end, that I think were the end for some people. I often actually tell myself in these events, I'll say peaks and troughs. When I'm feeling really low, I'll just say peaks and troughs. And then when I'm feeling really high, I'll remind myself peaks and troughs because I know it's not going to last. So no matter when things are going well or not going well, reminding yourself of what's to come, things will always change, right? What do you always say about there's 3 constants in life? Change,
choice, and principles.
Exactly. Same thing with investing, right? There are market cycles. Things aren't always going to go well. We always say no plan survives first contact with reality. And so how do you, as an investor, position yourself to have the right mindset when you hit the wall in investing?
The answer is it depends.
Yeah.
Right? At least from my experience, Is it the market cycle? Is it something, personal? There could be a death in the family. There could be a change at work. So there could be a market shift, and there could be your distributions now stop. So there's a lot of different things to happen. I think the common denominator is going back to the root. If you make the decision as a reaction to what's happening, most likely you'll make the wrong decision. It's like when people make a decision to move, are they moving away from something to get away from it because it's too hard, or are they moving towards something better? If an investor makes a reaction and moving away from pain and discomfort of, am I going to lose my money? The value just dropped. Does that mean if I don't take everything out now, I'll lose everything? Or taking this as data, and if someone can just take a step back and look at it along the lines of, over the last decade, how many times has this happened? Or 2 decades? And when they realize it's just a continual cycle, and they can look at it for what it is, and they know of what's important to them and the purpose behind what they're doing, and then recenter and get that clarity, they're going to make a much better investment decision and move towards what they want instead of a reaction of running away from something that hurts.
Right.
In my experience, we've never missed an investor payment. We've never missed a conventional loan payment. But I think that every investor has always understood what the objective is for that investment. So if you're going to go buy a business, the objective is that in 5 years, we expect to, or we hope to grow EBITDA by X, and we hope to exit for around X, right? And usually I give a pretty wide, target, because you can't read a crystal ball. You don't know what's going to hit the next 3 or 4 years. But that's kind of the range, right? We anticipate that we can scale this much and return this much. And as long as the expectation's been set that along the way, when cash flow is great and there's dividends and there's distributions, it's going to be there. But there may be moments where we've got to reinvest into the business because the objective is to exit in 5 years, right? The goal here is to win in the end. And if we can win along the way, then great, that's gravy. But the objective is the end. And so for me, when I think of if an investor has hit the wall, it means that something wasn't aligned. Either the expectation wasn't set the proper way, or there's a deeper issue, right? I mean, I know in one of our projects, we kept hitting this problem, and we finally had to just sit around together and say, what's really happening? What are we really not paying attention to that's causing this problem, so that we could then fix it and recoup? So I guess for me, I liken that wall to expectation. And as long as they were diligent in their side in making the investment, and we were diligent on our end in portraying what the investment really is, potentially you avoid the wall. I hope you avoid the wall, but it is inevitable. You make 10 investments, one of them is bound to go wrong. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I guess again, you diversify enough and you can prevent that wall from ever happening.
Yeah, it kind of goes to show that the freedom and achievement is won and conquered in the hard miles or hard times, not the easy times. In the race, when you hit the wall, if you give up, the race is over. Yeah. Or if in your investment something goes wrong temporarily and you decide to sell at an all-time low, that portfolio we discussed the other day, you have now lost all your money because you didn't have the right mindset in the tough miles. Mm-hmm. to prepare you to finish the rest of the event.
Do you remember meeting with some investors recently, and they had the question? So we had this investment that it's for business acquisitions, right? And it's a 5-year hold minimum. And they said, well, at 5 years, if we choose just to take it out, can we? So essentially, to kind of lay the groundwork, the race was a successful exit on the business. And I told them deliberately that we have made the decision that we will not base our exit on a date. It's going to be an outcome that we're looking for. And whether it's 5, 6, or 7 years, that's what it's going to be. And then she says, well, what if an investor, is in there for 5 years and just wants out? And do you remember what I said to her?
Pretty sure you said, well, in that case, we'd probably tell them that this is the wrong opportunity for them.
Exactly. And it would be, because even in 5 years, if they're dead set on taking it out exactly based on a date or a hold period, they've missed the entire point of the race. And the outcome, and I think it shocked her that I said, well, then it's not the right investment for him. I think that goes back even, 5 years to me doesn't seem like that's a short-term investment. And it's not, but it's the mentality and it's the attitude towards investments that make the difference. If someone can make money in a short period of time, fantastic, right? But going in expecting that every single time you're going to make money in a short period of time, and then when that doesn't happen, being able to have the fortitude foundation put into place that you can withstand all of those changes in the market cycle, the fear and greed diseases that are out there, and hold true to what's important and make it through that period to the point where you can execute on what you originally decided to do, or one of the original exit strategies of what's best for the project, rather than out of fear pulling it out early.
Exactly.
I think the other thing that I always like to do is to show anyone investing. It can be a 16-year-old that's just learning what an index fund is. But you can show them the trajectory. Like, today you've got $50,000. And, when it's invested the right way, I mean, they do this all the time with those calculators, right? You can create a simple spreadsheet if you wanted to. And you show them the power of the marathon. You show them how much compound interest is earning them in the later years. I think that is a powerful visual for anybody that's wanting to invest and understanding there's a marathon to it, a marathon approach of, don't worry about, the first year necessarily. Get your report, make sure that things are on, they're on trajectory to achieve what they set out to achieve. You've got to be a good steward of your investment, but you can't be tripped up by a year. Mm-hmm. You've got to look at that long-term scale and recognize where you're going to be in 20, 30, 40 years.
Running a sprint, there's nothing wrong with running a sprint when it's deliberate. I think it comes down to the overall picture of your entire portfolio of who you are. How much have you allocated to your emergency funds, right? That never gets touched. You have your opportunity funds, so in case something comes up, you have chances to work with, right? You have, those that are liquid assets and those that are illiquid. But in all of those, allocating a portion that is very deliberate to what you're trying to do for that sprint, or allocating it for that long term. I think the danger comes in when we want everything to be on our timetable and treating a long-term investment like a short-term, because Uncle Joey's friend's neighbor just did it. And so they want to be able to put money in and win the lottery, right? Right. And it's just not like that.
Well, I really enjoyed this episode, guys. Thanks for your commentary. And I really hope that this was valuable. I think a reflective question to ask yourself maybe is, while it's okay to sprint, as Rich just mentioned, right now, where are you sprinting when you maybe should be thinking long-term and thinking about the market cycles, the processes, and really the right mindset you need to have in the long term: patience and delayed gratification and resilience. Those are important things. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you think this would add value to someone's life, please do share it with them. And as always, we'd love to hear your stories. So that's a wrap for this show. Thank you.